Okay then, John, we're going to have a look at your stroke now from above and below the water from a range of different angles and see if we can try and work out how we can actually try to improve the swim stroke. Now, the first thing I have to say is it's looking a lot better than I actually initially thought we would see, which is good. So the video footage...
That's got to be the Bambino.
Second, sorry?
That's got to be the Bambino.
The Bambino guy. It's certainly a lot better than what I saw from the clips on that you put up from YouTube, you know, from you swimming in the endless pool, which is good to see. Okay, but there's clearly a difference between the two sides. So when you say that you feel much better breathing to left than to right, we're going to actually have a look at that now and see how we go. Now, what John's actually just doing here, as part of the Bambino guide and as part of what we'll do with the swimmers tomorrow at the start, is actually just trying to do some sink downs there, just to get his breathing a little bit relaxed, so it doesn't start off too tense and anxious.
It's interesting that I do them in a 1.3 metre pool. I only went as deep as I go in the pool.
Absolutely, yes, yeah. I'm going to show you how to try and get down to the bottom of this one today. Just try and relax it up a little bit. Okay, so here we go. Now, just a couple of stats to start off with. You're swimming here, John, at around about 2 minutes 20 per 100 metres, okay, and a stroke rate of about 47 or 48 strokes per minute.
When I've timed myself, the best I've done is about 2:10 when I really try for it. When I go over 1,000 metres, it's about 2:30.
That's an average of 2:30.
Yeah.
Sure, no problem. Okay, so what we see over the top of the water, we've got quite a nice arm recovery action happening over the top here. Okay, entering into the water nice and smooth here. Look, with the fingertips first into the water. We're taking the breath to the left-hand side on the way down the lap. On the right-hand side, every now and again you put in a couple of right-hand sided breaths, but obviously. Your favourite side is that left-hand side. When you, that's exactly right. Yeah. When you do breathe to this right-hand side, if you just look at a couple of key features here. What's nice about this is you're actually keeping your head in quite a good position there to take a breath in. You see this one eye just about underneath the water. You see this nice bow wave created around the head, and just out to the side, breathing into this little trough of air that's created beside that. We can see that you're rotating pretty well to the side because we can see your armpit out on the side there. What we are going to see though, when we look at this underneath the water, John, is that there is a tendency to almost over-rotate a little bit. I'll come back to that in just a moment's time. Okay. Now, everything that you see on the screen, John, is actually being recorded right now. So when you go home, don't think to yourself, oh my God, I'm going to remember all of that. You'll be able to play this back on your computer, you can watch it again, which will really help you with that. Okay. Now, let's just zoom back out a little again. Now, have you ever seen yourself from a bird's eye view looking straight down?
No.
Okay, be prepared for this because it is quite an eye-opener for most people. So what we're going to do, let's just change the angle around a little bit here and have a look from the top. Okay, you ready for this? Okay.
See what's going to happen.
What do you think's going to happen? Yeah. Okay. Now, at the moment, look at that. Everything's nice in alignment at the moment. Spine's nice and straight, look. Legs are nice and close together. Okay, all looking very good at the moment. Watch what happens when the hand comes into the water then. We take a breath to the side. The whole body actually ends up rotating to 90 degrees there.
Yeah.
Now, back in the early 90s, people used to be taught to swim on their side like a fish, to rotate and swim perfectly on their side to 90 degrees. And unfortunately, what's actually happening there, John, this is you breathing to your favourite side as well, to your left-hand side. This right arm is actually collapsing underneath the body. And because we're losing balance there, the legs are actually scissor kicking apart quite significantly, and that's creating a lot of drag there. Yeah. It's almost like opening up a parachute behind you. Now, like I say, this is quite an unusual angle to see somebody from, okay, but it is a very eye-opening one for yourself. So one of the key things that we need to work on today is making sure that when you are breathing, that lead arm is not collapsing. Okay, it's obviously more pronounced when you breathe to your least favourite side.
I didn't think my right arm
collapsed as much as what it's doing there. Yeah. So let's just watch this in slow motion and see how much it might be affecting the actual whole efficiency of the stroke. So notice when you're not breathing, it's fine. As soon as we take a breath though, that's where it really creeps in. So John, if I was to somehow be able to make you swim down the lap without you needing to breathe at all, you'd instantly be so much more efficient than what you are at the moment. Yeah. The problem is when we're breathing every 2 strokes that left-hand side, 50% of your strokes are becoming very inefficient because of the scissoring with the legs there. Okay, now let's just go back to that and see what we can do about this. You're probably familiar with the idea that there should always be one hand forward in front of the head at any one point in time. People often call it or refer to it as front quadrant freestyle swimming. Okay. Now, when we go to take a breath in, notice how just momentarily we have no support with anything extended out in front of the head there. Okay. Now, let me compare you to another couple of swimmers here. Starting off with a lady called Mel. Okay. Now, Mel's very new to swimming in this video clip. When we see her swimming here, we'll see her doing a similar thing in that when she goes to take a breath to the side, especially on this next breath coming up here, she takes a breath in, and the hand look collapses down, so both hands are way back behind her head.
Yeah.
So her timing is very far off where it needs to be.
The legs are better, though.
Legs are a little bit better, yeah, not scissoring quite so much. But the timing of the stroke, you're actually moving faster than Mel's swimming.
Yeah.
Mel's swimming about 2 minutes 40 per 100 here. You're doing about 2:20. Okay, but you can clearly see that same sort of thing. When she goes to take a breath, that lead arm collapses. Okay, now let's look at another swimmer, almost on the opposite end of the spectrum. I was showing the coaches this swimmer yesterday. This is a guy called Scott. Now, interesting enough with Scott, he might appear to look more efficient than you look at the moment. It looks very smooth, looks very relaxed in the water. But you just said there you're swimming around about 2 minutes 30 over 1,000 metres.
Yeah.
So too is Scott. You're swimming no faster than what you're swimming. Now, from the top of the water though, looking down, same angle, we'll see the difference between himself and yourself, and especially with Mel, is that he actually leaves that lead arm out in front of his head too long. The two hands actually catch each other up.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, he's been taught, he's been reading a book sort of thing, he's been taught that he needs to try and make his stroke as long as he can possibly make it. And unfortunately, what he's done is he's simply taken it too far, and that's causing a complete delay, a catch up at the front end of the stroke there. Notice how it happens with him with his left hand. The right hand's not too bad, that's actually pulling through, it's going wide, okay, but the timing of the stroke's actually okay. Just that left hand actually pausing and catching up at the front end of the stroke. Now, if we just lose Mel and see what our friend Scott looks like underneath the water here. When Scott leaves that lead arm out in front of him, notice how this elbow actually collapses. And he essentially stalls in the water as he does that. So let's just watch this, look. So he reaches forward, elbow collapses down, and if you look at how his kick works, there's like a series of stalls at the front, and then a rapid kick to get himself started again. Stalling at the front and kicking to get himself started again. Now there are elements of this stroke within your stroke, okay, but the timing is slightly different in that obviously Scott has that arm out in front of his head too long, you don't have it in front of your head long enough, okay. So I'm going to show you now what that timing should look like, and this is what we're going to aim for today. The next swimmer I'm going to show you now is our very own Mr. Smooth, John O'Van Hazel. So this is the guy that we use to model Mr. Smooth from. Now when you watch him swimming, if we look at the timing of his stroke, John, you'll notice that if we draw that same line through his head, there is always one hand forward in front of that line at any one point in time, but not so much that they're actually catching up. So this lead arm look is actually starting to pull through as the other one extends forwards. The left arm isn't waiting for the right one to catch it up, like Scott's was doing, but equally, he has support with that hand in front of his head.
Pushing about there.
That's exactly right, yeah. And that's what we don't have within your stroke at the moment in time, okay? So that's what we're going to aim to work on, try to actually improve within the stroke there. So big scissoring with the legs, all caused because we're actually collapsing that hand in front of you. We end up over-rotating, and that causes the legs to scissor pick apart. So it's like a sequence of events. You haven't got 4 or 5 things wrong with the stroke here. It's one thing happening up at the front end, which is throwing off everything else. Okay. Now, when we take things a little bit further along, let's just bring you up to real-time speed. And let's take a look at you underneath the water. We can actually see that arm collapsing. So this is the right arm, I beg your pardon, as you breathe to your left-hand side. And when we go to take that breath in, if we look at where you're actually pushing with the hand, you're pushing down, exactly right, John. So by pushing down here, it's giving you the lift here that you need to take your face out of the water to take a breath, but unfortunately, it's sinking the legs down at the back. So one of the key differences between your stroke, that's the surface of the water, and that's the legs dragging down. You heard of Rebecca Adlington, presumably? Yeah, okay. Now, it's funny, you all laugh at that, but when I say it in Australia, everyone goes, no, who's that? I was like, you're double Olympic gold medalist, you haven't heard of Rebecca Adlington, what's going on? And they're like, she's not Australian, Mike, she's not Australian. Okay. That's right, yeah, there we go. Okay, so there we go. We're at 10 minutes, okay. Now, obviously, John, here, if we look at the difference between yourself and Rebecca, purely from a body position perspective, look, her body position is very, very horizontal in the water, amazingly so. So, you're creating quite a bit of drag with the legs being low. Rebecca, obviously, has got her legs nice and high, so she slips through the water quickly. In fact, she's almost swimming twice the speed. She's swimming 112 per 100, you're swimming 220 per 100. So one of the key differences there, because the legs are low, in your case, a lot more drag, it's a lot harder for you to move through the water than Rebecca. But what's interesting is if we look at why that's occurring, we look at when Rebecca takes a breath. Now she's also breathing to her left here, as you are doing. But look at the difference in the hand position. Rebecca is actually directing water down and back behind her, which sends her forwards, of course, but it also stops her legs from dropping. Like so. With yourself, if we just carry on watching this here, we're still pushing down, so we're still lifting here, and we're still sinking there. We're still pushing down. Eventually we start to move the water back behind you, and at that point the legs just start to come up again towards the surface. Can you see that? Big difference, because you're actually moving the water in the right direction. So this is very, very common, John, very, very common indeed. On those first 3 arrows though, one of the sources for why your legs sink so low is because of how we're using the arm to lift and get your face out of the water there. Now, we see on the left hand side, this is not the arm, we're not using this arm to actually use it to breathe to the right hand side here. But you can see here how the elbow actually collapses. Just like so. Okay. Now, I think you're already aware that this is happening, so you saw that from your own video clip in the endless pool here.
I wasn't sure, I didn't think the right was though.
You didn't think the right was? Okay, interesting, isn't it? Yeah. You can see the stark contrast between the two of you here, in that Rebecca's able to keep that elbow much higher, almost like she's reaching over a big barrel. Now, with yourself, one of the things that Rebecca's got going for her, she's 24, 23 years old, the flexibility in her shoulders and upper back especially is going to be much greater than what yours is. So for me to sort of ask you, look, I need you to have your elbow up here and that there, that's probably not going to be quite possible from a biomechanical perspective, but it should be possible for us to get the elbow just a little bit higher than where it currently is and reaching a little bit more like so, to try and avoid that hand actually sinking and the elbow sinking in the water and pressing down against the weight of the water there. Now, this causes you real problems when you try and breathe to your right hand side, because that sinking, the hand collapses even further. So let me show you what I mean by that. When we see you swimming towards the end of the pool here, look. This is you now breathing to your right hand side. And that's that left arm, look, collapsing, really sinking in the water. And the hand up there, almost protecting your face, if you like. And in effect, the hand itself, or the elbow rather, is actually too bent. See that there? Yeah. Now let's bring Rebecca back in. I'll just zoom you in a little bit. And Rebecca. So coaches, just have a good look at this one here, because this is, for all the footage that we looked at yesterday, where most of you guys were actually pulling through quite a straight arm. Some swimmers can be on the other side of the other end of the spectrum, actually pulling through too much of a bent elbow. Well, it wants to be 100 to 120. Okay. Now, like I say, well, let's just come back. Just have a little look at Rebecca first before we answer that question. Rebecca here, John, look. So pulling through, John, with a very straight arm is no good for the stroke. It gives you too much lift. Yeah. But equally, pulling through with the elbow too bent, like you have it here, is not good, because we don't really get any purchase on the water. Yeah. We don't get any hold. So in terms of getting you pulling through a little bit better underneath the water, propelling yourself a bit better, when the hand is so close towards the chest here, we just don't get anything. All this water's been disturbed by your body moving through the water, and your hand is essentially trying to hold that very disturbed water. Yeah. We need to get your hand actually pulling and reaching a bit deeper on this side.
So that imaginary rope you talk about on the thing.
Exactly right. It wants to be somewhere like this, deeper.
Like, it's more like 2 ropes than 1 rope, is it?
That's exactly right.
Rather than 1 rope on the centre, more like 2 ropes.
That's exactly right. I guess basically the hand, if you look at the hand here, look, the hand as we should see it should be sort of underneath the shoulder. Yeah. See how your hand is actually sweeping across underneath the body, but it's more the angle, John, that we're concerned with here. Yeah. The fact that we're closing the hand up too close towards the chest there. When we look at it on this side, that arm actually pulls through much better on the right hand side, which explains why you can breathe better to your left than you can to your right. Yeah. Purely because you've got more support with that right arm. So we need to do something today about this left arm. See just how close it gets to the face, look. How close the elbow is bending there.
I want to itch my eye.
That's exactly right, yeah, oh, there you go, yeah. So all these little analogies, if you think of yourself, I look like I'm itching my eye there, I don't want to itch my eye, that's going to be good because it's going to allow you to actually reach to a deeper point there and pull through nice and effectively. So we're going to concentrate a lot today on what this left arm is doing underneath the body once we've actually corrected the timing of the stroke. Okay, because it's very, very close there indeed. Now the final thing that I just want to finish off with, let's just come back to zoom you back out again. Let's just watch it from the side here. Again, this is you just breathing to your favourite side, but you can really see from that angle just how much its left arm bending a lot from the elbow and the hand pulling very, very close to the body. And it's quite interesting.
And I've got that little bit of a start-up kick.
You have, yes, perfect. The kickstart, exactly right. Yeah. Now this is something that Adam coaches again. This is something that Adam was talking to a couple of you just about, as I heard as I was filming John. If we look at John underneath the water, that sort of start-up kick that we talked about yesterday. If we slow this right the way down, the start-up kick comes from if there's any sort of overly pausing at the front end of the stroke, where we sink there, look. John ends up having to sort of kick-start himself there. You see it? Bang. Just to actually kick himself started again, literally kick-start himself again through the water there. Just there. No, it's all part of the overglide, I think. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Way too much rotation. Now, if we just finish on that note, look. Let's watch this here. So you breathe into your left-hand side. Yeah. See if we've got a slightly better angle here. Look, here we go. So if you remember, coaches, I asked John just to try, and I knew this would be an issue that we needed to look at. I asked John just to do the last couple of laps, just out to Kate, and if we look at that yellow line, John, that represents the surface of the water. We draw a line here directly through the shoulders. We end up having about 76 degrees worth of rotation there within the stroke. That number, if we bring up Rebecca Adlington, should be between about 45 and 60 degrees. Okay, so there you go, we've got Rebecca in that same spot right away. So like I say, you may have learnt through your reading that you need to swim literally on your side to get that rotation. You even made a comment in the classroom about the coach that you've been working with never even heard of, the squad coach, never even heard of rotation or never even talked about it. But there we go, we've got about 54 degrees worth of rotation there with Rebecca's stroke. When we get to this sort of position, notice how we can't see Rebecca's feet. She's not having to scissor kick apart to regain balance like you are doing yourself. And of course that creates a significant amount of drag there when that happens.
When I do the swim on side drills, I actually find it difficult to swim on the side.
Totally.
But looking at that, I shouldn't be doing.
No, that's exactly right. Yeah. Now, this is a really good point that John's just asked here. Really good point. I'm just going to take him through now so you can visually see the drills that he needs to do to actually work on to try and improve this. And the point that he just said was, he said, when I do this kick on the side drills, I actually really struggle with it. And yet he says, why would that be? Because I'm actually swimming already too much on my side. Well, let's look at why that might be the case. If we just get rid of John here and bring up the side kicking exercise. We talked about this yesterday for Magnus as a drill which he could use to actually correct the crossover in front of his head. So this is the side kicking exercise there, John. Lead arm, extended out in front of the head. And the focal point when you're doing this is to think about, see how you're actually hunched over at the moment? So actually think about drawing your shoulder blades together and back. Now, not only will that straighten the arm out, remember Magnus when he did that, he straightened his arm out because naturally he was crossing over in front of his head there. So by drawing the shoulder blades together and back, that takes the hand from here to there. But for yourself, it's actually going to give you a sense of better stability within the stroke. So we don't end up over-rotating, we don't end up dropping the elbow, and the legs don't end up scissor kicking apart.
Well, that is a full 90 degrees, that one.
It's pretty much full 90 degrees on that. But when we go underneath the water, this is the angle that I want you to all see here, look. When we go to this position, look, from the side, and we bring John up, here we go. So, me and you, albeit I've got fins on, so I'm cheating a little bit, okay? That's the surface of the water. That's the general body line, if you like. But it's this that I'm interested in here with the arm, okay? Now, if you have a little look at the comparison between that and what I'm doing here, it's very different, look. The elbow is the highest point, higher than the wrist, and the wrist higher than the fingertips. So when you're doing the side kicking exercise, side kicking is often used just to work on rotation. John doesn't need any more rotation in stroke. In fact, he needs a little bit less and he needs more stability. So when we work on this exercise, John, I'm going to be asking you to keep the arm in more of this position rather than actually collapsing the elbow. Because the reason you struggle with the side kicking exercise at the moment is because when you're doing it, it's simply highlighting what's holding you back within the stroke, with that arm collapsing out in front of the head there.
I struggle more to the...
With the left arm out? Yeah, absolutely. Because that's the one that's really almost like a teapot position in the water there. Now,
I usually about halfway down, I remember your book says pull them back and down.
Back and down, exactly right. Yeah,
I usually remember about halfway through.
For sure. Now, coaches, quick question for you guys. How do you think we're going to be able to get John in that position? Fins, paddle. We could actually give John a paddle with that lead arm, just to give you a little bit of surface tension, if you like, to actually show you where that point wants to be, so you can actually focus on keeping the elbow up a little bit higher. So the paddle is going to work quite nicely in that respect. But with the powers of modern technology, John, today, I'm actually going to be able to talk to you whilst you're swimming. Right. So it's not a case of you it's not a case of you're going to have a little headset on, I'm going to have a microphone and be able to talk to you.
Just back and down.
Exactly right. That's exactly right. So if you're forgetting any of this as you're going along, I'm not going to bombard you with instructions, but every now and again I'll just say, John, shoulders back, chest forward, just bring that hand down a little bit, keep the elbow up a bit higher, and we'll be able to get those changes to the stroke happening much quicker. Rather than me saying go and do 25 and then giving you feedback at the end of the 25, we'll be able to do it as we go along. So that's going to allow us to achieve that position and work on it, because it's this position which is holding you back. It feels awkward, okay? Breathing, especially breathing to your right hand side, feels awkward because of how much that elbow on the other side actually drops. Our aim to start off with today is to try and get that elbow sitting up a lot higher and for you not to collapse the arm. Once we do that, what we'll find is that if you go right back to the start, when we saw you from the surface, just here, if we can work out how to stop collapsing that lead arm when you're taking a breath, it's going to bring the timing of the stroke together, it's going to stop the leg scissor kicking apart, it's just going to make the whole stroke flow a little bit better. After we've done those little exercises, John, the next little thing to do, and again coaches, it's a very important drill for John to go through. We did it a little bit with Magnus yesterday, but we're going to do it a lot with John, is simply a bit of sculling. Now, you might think, so far I've really only shown you guys a bit of side kicking and a bit of sculling this weekend. Tomorrow when we get the swimmers in and we do the full course, we'll go through about 7 or 8 different drills. Remember, we're only using the drills here that are actually specifically targeted for John, and they just so happen to be the same drills that are targeted for Magnus, but for a different reason. Okay? So, when we're going along here, look, this drill, John, sculling, have you tried this before?
Yeah, I've done about three or four sessions of that. The first one I was doing that.
Yes, coming back, almost like a breaststroke.
Then I suddenly realised that you weren't doing that, so I came and looked at it. So I sort of did that.
Yes,
And
you see how John, even in that position, John's actually dropping his elbows.
So I did that.
Yep.
And then I started thinking,
yes.
Well, actually, I've got to do that.
Perfect. Good. And we're going to make sure you've got that absolutely spot on.
Getting my head out was awful.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yes.
Solar on the web on the forum.
Yes. Yeah.
Has said it's almost suggesting you don't need to keep your head out.
Well,
everything you do is your head out.
It's interesting. When John's raised a good question here. Should you be doing these drills with your head up or out or down in the water? Now, we've already talked about the fact that John he's 60 years old. We know that there is some restriction there in the upper back and shoulders. Lifting his head out of the water is probably going to be a lot harder for him to do sustainably than for me. However, one of the benefits of actually lifting the head out of the water is, I thought you were doing it for us there, okay, is when you do that, it actually helps you to engage and draw the shoulders together and back. So it's a little bit like, it's 6 of one, half a dozen of the other.
You need to reply to Solar.
I will do, yeah, don't you worry, yeah. Now, that's sometimes when we do this, I'll actually see you in action today doing this.
Yeah.
If it does look like it's obviously too awkward for you, then I'll give you the same instruction that Solar's giving you to actually pop your head down in the water and just be mindful of those things.
I did about 320 metres of it yesterday.
Right, yes, okay, perfect.
I was obviously dropping my elbows.
Obviously dropping your elbows, yeah. You've seen what happens when that occurs. So this is what I'm doing now. I'm actually purposely doing what you're doing there. That's right. So watch what happens here. Look, when the elbows drop down, we stop going forwards, we start pushing ourselves backwards. Yeah, it's like wax on, wax off. Yeah, exactly right. So these two drills specifically are what we're going to really focus on today. Okay. One of the key focuses when we do the doggy paddle. You know how you just asked that question about pulling along a rope. Oops, sorry. Doggy paddle here, look. So for John, again, this is a nice visualization, look. Remember how closed up your arms, your hand, you described it as scratching your nose?
Yeah.
You see here how we've got that nice bend at the elbow, but the hand is a good 50 centimetres underneath the chest there. Same on the right side as well. When we see Rebecca Adlington swimming towards us, my goodness, you're going to get bored of Rebecca Adlington over the weekend. Never. You can never get bored of Rebecca Adlington.
Look, when you live
okay.
about 8 miles from where she came from, you get bored of her.
I guess. If we watch her in slow motion, John, this is what we're going to try and achieve with your left arm pull through. Is simply reaching deeper. You don't need to suddenly, got great big strong muscles, doing all the conditioning that Rebecca's done. I simply need you with that left hand to actually reach a little bit deeper. Okay, I'm not saying we're going to be able to get a Rebecca Adlington like catch today or the propulsion from that.
Yeah, I thought I was going to come away from here a minute.
No, there we go. Yeah, well, we'll see what happens. We're going to try and get you simply pulling a little bit deep on that left hand side there, mate. Very, very nice indeed.
I think I've taken the thing of the rope under the water too literally.
Right. Okay. Yeah,
I think I've actually
been scooping under. Yeah.
Been going hand over hand, so coming down the rope
underneath the water. Yeah. I think that, like I say, the major difference though is the actual depth of the rope.
Yeah.
So in terms of visualising it, I'll actually get you to visualise it being deeper underneath the body, especially with your left hand. Okay, so that's what you're looking like, John. Okay, and what we're going to do now, mate, is we're going to jump into the water and systematically go through step by step how to actually improve your swimming. For your reference, like I say, all of this has been recorded, so you don't need to remember any of that. And for your reference, the system that we're going to go through. We're going to jump in the water to start off with. This is a very similar sequence that I will do with most swimmers when I'm doing a stroke correction session. And certainly the first part of the swimmer's course tomorrow, we will go through a similar sequence. I'm going to get John into the water. He mentioned that he's been doing the sink downs. You could see him sinking, but only going down, to, as you described it, to 1.3 metres. The pool here is 2 metres deep. We're going to see if we can actually just get him relaxing a little bit deeper with it by blowing out from the mouth and sinking a little bit further down. I'm then going to take him through a couple of sequences just to show him how to actually tune up the efficiency of the leg kick. So this would be something I would have done with yourself, Kay, yesterday, with the bending from the knee. When I do that with John, I'm going to show him how to keep the legs a little bit straighter, okay, and also how to keep the legs in a little bit closer together. Remember, the reason, John, your legs are scissor kicking apart is because of the lack of balance at the front from over-rotating and dropping that arm. But I'm going to show you technically how to actually keep the legs a little bit closer together and tap those toes as you're kicking along. Once we've done that though, we're then going to move on to the nitty gritty. A lot of side kicking, a lot of stopping your arm collapsing underneath the water, and then working on that catch and pull through. Okay, so there's almost 4 phases to this session. Breathing, A little bit of work on the efficiency of your leg kick, the timing of the stroke, and that's the side kicking stuff, stopping you over rotating, and then the last part, just getting a little bit better feel for the water. It's all the stuff that features in the Bambino guide, which John's already got a copy of. He's been working through that a little bit just recently. But today, in a one-to-one scenario, obviously a training guide that somebody's following by themselves is going to take them so far. And like I say, he has made some big improvements from what I saw online. But today, in that one-to-one situation, you're never going to be able to replace that sort of one-to-one coaching, and that's where we're going to try and make the changes. Okay. Any questions at all, John? Or
no, get to
quite keen to get into it?
Yeah.
Good, excellent. Okay. Now, what I need to do, mate, is take that cap off.